I am engaged in a battle with my smart thermostat. It wasn't supposed to be this way. These so-called smart devices were intended to make our lives easier. Perhaps in some ways they do, but my thermostat certainly doesn't. Here's the deal. It's programmable. I can program it to come on at, say, 7:30 in the morning, and I can set the temperature I want it to warm the room to. Fantastic! In theory, this seems quite wonderful, but it isn't. Somewhere around 6ish, I shoehorn myself out of bed to make that first trip to the bathroom. When this new thermostat and I were getting to know each other, I'd make the first morning trip fully expecting to feel a chill in the air. Imagine my disappointment on finding that the room was already at a toasty 72. This sort of mollycoddling is bad for the soul, and is definitely the sort of thing that over several generations can lead to the decay and complete dissolution of society. I never had to experience the strict discipline of nighttime trips to the outhouse in the depths of winter like my parents did. However, I think some of this is still wired into my DNA. I like the air to be a little chilly when I get out of bed, and I don't think there's any harm in shivering a little as one's cold bum perches on the toilet seat first thing in the morning. It makes crawling back under the covers afterwards feel all the more luxurious. Anyway, after the initial disappointment of getting out of bed in the morning and not feeling chilly, I figured out what was going on. My Honeywell thermostat is smart. The fact that I program the numbers 7:30 a.m. and 72 degrees into it does not mean that it comes on at 7:30 a.m. and begins to heat the room to 72 degrees. What it does is think to itself, this human wants the room to be 72 degrees by 7:30, so I will switch the heating on an hour or so early. Then, over the course of the next few days, I'll figure out how long it takes to warm this room to 72 degrees. That way, I can learn exactly when to switch the heating on, so that when my human master gets out of bed at 7:30, the room will be exactly 72 degrees. How smart! How efficient! How disappointingly subservient and terribly dull. So now, I am fully locked into a battle with my smart thermostat. Because it refuses to switch the heating on at 7:30 because I tell it to, I have to reverse engineer its thought process and try to figure out when I tell it to come on at 7:30 when it is actually turning the heating on. If it switches the heating on an hour and 15 minutes before 7:30, then I can tell it to come on an hour and 15 minutes later than I really want it to. This is how I think the world is going to end. People are worried about AI and how robots are going to become smarter than us and eventually take over. If only it could end all so swiftly and catastrophically. I think it's going to be death by 1,000 well-intentioned acts of artificially generated and well-intended kindness. Our robot servants are going to try so hard to make our lives comfortable in every possible way that we will perish from far too much comfort and the ensuing boredom. And it will all have started with the refusal to allow us to experience chilly air and a slightly cold bum first thing in the morning.